Hey, I'm Andy, and this is Daily Spin, a new series where I am attempting to actively listen to all 1,500 records or so that I own. Had my first week last week, got through about 20 albums. It was great. Took a little break for the weekend and got right back into it last night. And boy, is this first one a total doozy for me in a good way. I just don't know what to say about it. I'm not sure how to communicate how much I love this album, but more than that, how much it really fundamentally changed me for the better. That is MF Doom and Madlib's Madvillian. Um, what a classic. And like I said, I can't say anything about this that hasn't already been said. It is an unbelievably good album. If Pet Sounds' my favorite album was a 10 and it was the only 10 that I would give any album, this would be like a 9.8 solidly for me. So the reason I love this album is not just for its brilliance, because it is brilliant, but it's because this opened up an entire genre to me that I had grown up essentially writing off. I've only briefly mentioned, and I'll only keep it brief, that I grew up in a very restrictive religious household. I wasn't really allowed to listen to that much, especially if it wasn't the religion's music that I grew up with. So this was something where, there's just not great hip hop in the Christian realm. Uh, Maybe there is some. If you want to tell me some, link it below. Let me check it out. But at least when I was growing up, it wasn't really a thing. And I didn't like it. And I wrote it off. And, I grew up hearing about hip hop culture in such a negative light. So fast forward, and I'm in college, and I have a buddy that comes in that is shopping in the store that I have all the time, and he's buying a ton of Madlib and Doom stuff. I don't remember him buying this album from me, but I just remember he was buying that, a lot of J Dilla. And I remember asking him one day, like, look, I don't like hip hop, but if I were to get my first hip hop album, what should I get? And this is the album he told me. Not only that, he went into my store when I wasn't there, my store, and he bought the record from my store for me. So this is like really special. It's even numbered on the back. You can see this edition has stamped number. So the important part about this album really is that it was already special. It was already sentimental right out of the gate. So I was way more invested in just being open and hearing what it had to say and listening to it. You get through the illest villains and you go into Accordion, which is one of my favorite songs ever because it blew away any preconceived notions that I had for this record. Accordion was not something that I thought I would hear. That's the one I'll drop in the playlist, which I'll link in the description, but blew my mind. Now, I knew I was in for a treat because I wasn't expecting that at all. It was not what I thought this would be. And the whole album just did that to me. And I listened to it over and over, and I got really into the lyrics, and then, MF Doom and his character creation and development, the unbelievably creative and deep rhymes. I mean, everything about this is just so good. So part of it is certainly the fact that this really opened up hip hop to me. I mean, after that, I really started digging into a lot more hip hop, and I have a decent hip hop section now. It's not my deepest collection, but through this process, we're going to go through at least 50 or 60 hip hop albums. And I genuinely enjoy it. And I'm so appreciative for this album for turning me on to a genre of music that I just had written off. That is one of the craziest, most important things that can happen for me as a listener. I love being wrong, and I love changing my mind and loving something that I thought I hated. This did that. As a side note, I'm kind of a little bit of a synth nerd. That's like my other thing that I do. This Emu Systems SP1200 here that Madlib is holding. Incredible piece of gear. I wish I could rant about that, but it's already gone long enough. So I'm going to just jump straight to the next album. That is this. This is a bootleg, vocals only, of Pet Sounds. Like I said, Pet Sounds is my favorite album. I also, in this, have included this Sub Pop 45. This came out in the late 90s, I think. Maybe during the 30th anniversary when Pet Sounds Sessions came out, which this bootleg is just a dub, like a copy of the vocal stacks, the vocal only part of the Pet Sounds Sessions. So you can get that for cheap or stream it, listen to it. I don't think most people would need to buy this album. It is wonderful. The harmonies, hearing them without the music is something really special. Yeah, and this 45 that I mentioned, it has I Just Wasn't Made for These Times, the stereo mix, plus the vocal only track for Wouldn't It Be Nice, and the stereo backing track with no vocals for Here Today. So I keep these together because they're kind of the same gist. If you are a fan of Pet Sounds though, you might not know this exists. You can still find them for pretty cheap out of the Netherlands, I think. They're still being bootlegged. So do with that what you will. I'm not really going to encourage bootlegs here. I would definitely say, though, if you love Pet Sounds and you don't have the Pet Sounds Sessions, do not buy this. Buy the Pet Sounds Sessions because it's like the best box set ever for that kind of thing. Up next is Before and After by Neil Young. Nice gatefold, looking like a badass. Easy album to listen to if you love Neil Young. Yeah, you know, Neil Young is the guy that has 1,000 different faces. You know, he makes all these albums that are just all over the place, and somehow they all sound exactly like Neil Young. I don't know any other artist that's quite like that. I love him for it. The reason this is special, though, is because I've seen him twice in the last few years on tour, and it's just Neil Young solo on stage, playing an acoustic guitar and then jumping to one of his organs and a piano. Just him kind of screwing around. This kind of sounds like that. Really good, like, acoustic solo tracks, some deeper cuts, like I'm the Ocean from Mirrorball in the 90s, which is an excellent album that's often overlooked. Comes a Time is on here. Yeah, Birds is great. So if you're a fan of Neil Young and just acoustic chill listening, great album. He's kind of like putting something out every other week, I feel like, so I don't know if it's overlooked or just kind of buried in the mix of all the new stuff. So yeah, the last album for this session is a real good one, and that is Tomorrow. So yeah, here's the back. So this is a psychedelic album, British psychedelia from '68. And I should make a distinction, and I should have done this sooner. American psychedelic music from the 60s is much different from British music from the same time. You know, you're not going to pick up like Easter Everywhere by 13th Floor Elevators and then pick up Tomorrow. And if you love Easter Everywhere, you might not love this album. They're very, very, very different. This album, you'll love it if you're into things like Revolver or Sgt. Pepper's, early Floyd, you know, things like The Soft Machine, Tomorrow, early Pink Floyd were some of the titans of British psychedelic music at the time. And yeah, this is just a classic and 60s Psych. My White Bicycle, the opening song on the album, great introduction to the album. You'll totally get where the album's going if you listen to that. And it's solid all the way through. Out of all of like the psychedelic albums I have, this is a top 3, no questions asked. Very approachable, very pop Savvy album. There's even a cover of Strawberry Fields, which is like a guitar driven cover. It's actually good. Um, I feel like they treated the vocals in a way like the Beatles did. So I mean, they sang it like the Beatles, which is great because you get like some of those magic moments that happen because of the way Strawberry Fields is sung by the Beatles. And it happens in this song. And there's just like little details that I think they got right in the best possible way. So it's actually a good cover. You know, sometimes covers, especially that, uh, covering Strawberry Fields now, that's a real ballsy move. But this was, like right after it came out. So it wasn't quite the classic that we know it as today, but still a ballsy move. And they knocked it out of the park. It's great. This whole album is great. You can find this for relatively cheap still, $30. I'm sure they'll continue to repress it because it is such a good album. And yeah, so that was my first day of my second week of Daily Spins. It was a great day. I don't know how I'm going to follow it up tonight. We'll just have to see where it takes me. Anyway, if you got it this far, thanks for stopping by and hanging out for a bit, and I will see you next time.